Okay, the first weekend of the NCAA tournament is behind us. And Josh Tech, I don't know about you, but my bracket has been busted. We're going to talk about it. I'm Justin Young. He's Josh Tech with HoopSeen. We had a lot of fun creating a lot of stuff before the tournament got started. Now that our brackets, especially mine, Josh, especially mine, is in pure carnage, we wanted to kind of reset, talk about what we saw already. We're going to talk about what's coming up here in the future. I think we have a lot to discuss right here on the Fast Break, right here on hoopseen.com. Appreciate everybody taking a watch. So, I mean, I'll ask you the question I've gotten texted about 1,000 times. How is your bracket? Has it survived?
No, my bracket's terrible. My dog's bracket. Well, she started off 6-6. She started off 6 for 6. I thought she was the dog Stradamus of NCAA basketball. But as per usual, her bracket fell off pretty hard. So we're all in pain and misery over here. She's on the couch moping around because there's no basketball to watch tonight.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. If you look at the bracket now, I mean, for the most part, it went pretty chalk, right? Like, higher seed. I think only 2 of the non-higher seeds won to get to the Sweet 16. So it's pretty chalk. So if you have people in your group that just, always pick the higher seeds, they're probably sitting pretty right now. But man, we did see a lot of things happen in the first round. I was done right out the gate when Arizona lost, and my bracket was busted. I'm pretty sure Foley Whittinson messed up a lot of people along the way. Along the way too. But let's talk about that. Let's kind of look it back for a second. Since neither you or I won the first weekend of the NCAA bracket, who did? Like, which team do you feel like left, round 1 and 2 with the most, still intact? Like, who's alive? Who's the strongest? I think right now, like, who really won the weekend? I think it's what I'm trying to say.
Right. I think for me, the team I look at the first is Houston, because while they were a number 1 seed, while they were one of the favorites all season long to be a Final Four team, to be a national championship favorite, they've had some pretty adverse times on their hands. That both of their starting guards are injured, and they had to play Auburn in Birmingham, which is like, how that happened, I have no idea. How the number 1 seed, the second number 1 seed overall, had to play Auburn in Birmingham. Whoever let that happen is insane. So I think that all the adversity that came Kelvin Sampson's way, they overcame it, and they just looked really good. And it seems like no matter if Sasser's injured, no matter if Shedd's injured, they just have other dudes that step up and push the lead out, or can win games for them.
Yeah, it's hard to discount that, right? Like, they always seem to find a win, which I think that's the beauty of this Houston team. That's one of the reasons why I think they're one of the two, only them and Alabama are 2 of the number 1 seeds left. Man, really a wild weekend. I think, to me, really who won the weekend was college basketball, really, and why we love the tournament, right? Like, Fairleigh Dickinson doing it again, Virginia losing again to Furman. I think, no 12 seeds won. I think the 13th seed now is the new 12 seed, by the way. I feel like the 13th seed is really like having more success lately than the 12 seed is.
Hey, I mean, at this rate, I think the 15 seed might be the new 5 or 12 seed, because in the last 3 years, I think, in each of the last 3 years, a 15 seed has advanced to the second weekend. So
yeah, it's pretty nuts. So we'll get into Princeton for sure as we look at the bracket as a big time. I think, Furman definitely won. They got their first tournament win in the last 40 years.
Princeton won the weekend. I don't know what I'm talking about. Princeton won the weekend.
Oh, well,
they blew up Missouri and they beat Arizona. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was getting there. I know. Well, I think I'm still salty because Princeton absolutely wrecked my bracket. Listen, we both work in basketball, and all of our peers, our friends that are like working engineering or, sales jobs or whatever, are always mad at us because they think we have the best jobs and we know everything. And then usually in any bracket that I'm ever in, I'm always in the very bottom, probably because I way overthink it. And a team like Princeton comes in and jacks it all up. So it's pretty cool to see the Tigers getting out there. Princeton also, by the way, pretty common sight to see it, like our best of South. They're always coming in pretty deep to recruit. So it's not a big surprise there. Any players for you out of the first weekend? You're like, when we think about, the Luther Vandross songs, at the very end when we're going to One Shiny Moment, any players from this first weekend that really kind of fit the category of really winning the weekend per se?
Yeah, there's a ton. There's so many. I think Isaiah Wong is a guy from Miami. He is just like, that performance he had the other night was great. Drew Timme from Gonzaga, he's just kind of doing what he's always done, right? I know some people have Gonzaga fatigue and probably have Drew Timme fatigue as a result, but they are great. and he is great. Eighth straight Sweet 16, and he dropped an F-bomb live on TV, which is great. I love that. Marquise Noel, Kansas State, 29 points against Kentucky. Impressive.
Yeah, it was super, super impressive. No question about that. I thought he was really awesome. I think in losing effort for me, I thought Mike Miles from TCU was a player that absolutely I think people had a hard time ignoring him. I think Mike Miles, by the way, is going to be a guy that makes it to the NBA and has success. I really do. I think he's got kind of cachet to him. He's got that sort of spirit and that sort of fire. I thought even in losing effort, Oscar Tshiebwe played phenomenal for Kentucky. I mean, absolutely tremendous. It's been such a long time since I've seen somebody so good on the backboard as a rebounder, dominant. I thought there were a lot of guys in that space that certainly won the weekend. I mean, listen, I think you can talk about anybody on FAU won the weekend. I think anybody.
My guy at Princeton, I don't know how to say his name. It's like Tosu Efuoma or something like that. The big guy for Princeton, he won the weekend.
He was unbelievable. Yeah, he was unbelievable. So a lot to take in, I think, from this weekend. I don't know though, Josh. It's interesting. I don't know, and I've been saying this for a long time, is that the new bloods are taking over basketball way more than the blue bloods, right? And we've seen, even though we've got, awesome to see Tom Izzo and his crew still, and winning. It's just Tom Izzo at the peak. But listen, we've got so many new teams that are in the tournament: San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Houston, Creighton, Xavier, Gonzaga. Again, I know Creighton's, Xavier's, Gonzaga. They've been playing, having success in March Madness for a long time, but this isn't Kansas, right? This isn't Kentucky. In fact, none of the. Well, I guess UCLA is really. I don't know, who would you define as a blue blood, by the way? Is there a short list? I think UCLA is really the last of them that's still playing.
Yeah. So this is a bigger conversation because this could be debated. I think blue bloods kind of reshape every decade or so, because Indiana is considered a blue blood, but that's kind of I guess because of what they did before I was born. Okay, cool. I think you got to kind of keep that cycle going. That's why North Carolina is always going to be there, because they're always winning. Duke's always winning. Kentucky's for this purposes of the conversation, Kentucky's always winning. Kansas is always winning. I think I would take out Indiana and put in Villanova. I think you can reinsert UCLA after a while because they've kind of been there. Gonzaga, I think, is in that conversation now because they've been doing this for 20 plus years under Mark Few. So I think they're in the conversation.
Yeah, I think Michigan State hasn't faltered. Duke hasn't faltered. Yeah, there's a category of never go away kind of programs, right? And there's some new ones that, to your point.
And for me, I don't necessarily count. You don't have to be a national championship perennial winner. I think Michigan State's good. They only won one national championship under Tom Izzo, but they're always in the tournament. At this point, if you're making the tournament, 20 years in a row or something like that, you're a blue blood in my book.
You know what, though? To me, it just reiterates what I've believed for a long time, is that the gap between the best of the high majors and everybody else is such a minuscule line, right? This is we're going to talk about later. This is an old tournament. You have a lot of guys that are transfers that are having success that started at non-major schools, and it's stuff that we're not surprised by. I mean, we even we had this great photo. I don't know, Carter Wilson, who used to work for us, I think texted maybe Garrett about Grant Singleton, the starting point guard for Fairleigh Dickinson. And I found an old photo of him playing Adam Flagler. Now, coming out of high school, Adam Flagler went to Presbyterian, and Grant Singleton's here at Fairleigh Dickinson, right? And neither one of them took a traditional path to get to where they are now, right? And I think Grant took a prep year, and Adam started PC and then ended up going to Baylor, and who was phenomenal in the first round or second round for Baylor as well. But and we have a picture of those two guys playing each other at the Bob Gibbons. And so my point is that I've seen this. We've seen this at HoopSeen so many times. Anthony Black playing on the best independent team in the country and is a starter and really one of the few really good freshmen that's seeing the floor in college basketball for Arkansas. That the gap between the high major guys and the rest of college basketball, I actually would even take it a step further and say it doesn't exist, or it's literally the 1%. There's a 1% crew that you see. And college
Anthony Blacks, because the Anthony Blacks are so good. You know what I'm saying? I get what you're saying. He falls into that 1% group in my book.
Yeah, it does. And we see that time and time and time again of guys that are uncommitted. Like there's a guy that's still available, Anquan Bolden Jr., who's down at IMG as a post grad. And I talked to his coaches like, Justin, I don't know what else I have to do to get college guys to recruit this guy. I'm like, I'm with you. We've seen him for so long go out there and have success. And he's not any different than the guy that goes and signs with a high major school, because we see it every single tournament consistently. So this gap, and I tweeted this out. I really do hope that more college coaches and more mouthpiece guys go to things that aren't sponsored by a shoe company to really go out there and see, because it's out there. We see it every single year, and it transpires every single March. And people are like, oh my God, I don't know why this is happening. What's happening in college basketball? It's been happening for a long time. It's been happening for a long time, and we see it every single spring and summer on our platform, and other independent companies' platforms. You know, so I'm going to get off.
Can I ask really quickly what you think might have contributed to that, I guess, ramping up and that gap shrinking even more? Because it seems like now that it is like it's certainly at its, I guess the gap is certainly at its smallest. Do you think that the transfer portal aided in that, because a lot of these guys are getting older, or a lot of these teams are getting older guys who have been through the battles?
I think it's all of those things, right? I think it's just a titanic shift. I really do on how everything's done. And in that process, when you shift things, there's little gaps, right, that other things can kind of creep in and start to grow and have life. But to be fair, man, I think it's because guys are getting a chance to play really, really good teams. I think in years past, and I don't know, this may be a totally wrong theory here, but like in years past where independent teams just kind of got thrown out with the bathwater a little bit, and they didn't get an opportunity to go compete against other like-minded teams. Where for us, man, it's every single tournament. We've got dudes going against each other. I mean, shit, look at the draft coming up, right? The Thompson twins played for a non-sponsored team, going to be top 8 picks. You know what I mean? Like we see it all the time. Like the talent gap, again, it's so minuscule that I don't necessarily believe that it's true. I mean, look at, like you said, look at Princeton. Look who they beat, right? Look who they beat. And then everyone's acting shocked. Well, it happens time and time and time again. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think it has a lot to do with everything, and now it's just kind of starting.
It's just a big amalgamation of different small things kind of boiling over. Yeah.
Great use of the word amalgamation, by the way.
Thank you. I got in trouble for using that in school one time because they said, in journalism, you're not supposed to use words that your people don't understand. And it's like, well, if you don't understand what the word amalgamation means, it's not my fault.
I love it. I mean, I think the good part to look at is like, look at this tournament. Like, there is a real lack of NBA prospect in it, right? Like there's a big difference this year. I talked to a couple NBA guys today, and they're like, I'm like, are you enjoying the tournament? They're like, no, not really. Like, well, why? They're like, it's all seniors, all guys that we really don't have a ton of interest in, right? Like it's I don't know if this is true, but this might be the oldest tournament ever, I think, by average age of the players in the tournament. I think I heard that somewhere, maybe on broadcast.
It certainly feels like it. Like it when you look across, you're like, well, that guy's been in college forever. That guy's been in college forever.
Yeah.
That guy was playing in the NCAA tournament when I was watching games in my first year at HoopSeen at Bama Jam or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fifth-year guys, certainly because they're granted next year because of COVID. The transfers, no doubt about it. There's a lot of guys with master's degrees playing for the tournament.
Sweetening up that deal and come back.
Yep. I don't know if there's a ton. Like, I think the best, Brandon Miller was the guy that was the best NBA prospect going into it. And quite frankly, Brandon Miller's not played particularly well in the 2 wins for Alabama. I mean, he's only averaging 9.5 points a game. He's 5 of 22 from the floor. He's 2 of 6 from 3. People can say, well, he's a little distracted with all the things that are going on with the
got a little injury too.
Yeah, is that okay? Sure. But again, like this is the guy that we were all talking about maybe being, a top 3 pick potentially. Nick Smith, again, battling injury, battling some other things. Really the 2 best guys going into the draft, I don't think are playing at their very, very best. I mean, heck, Jarace Walker potentially for Houston. But listen, of all the teams that are still playing, I had a really hard time making a short list of guys that were the best NBA prospects that were still playing in the NCAA tournament, which to me, again, goes to show how close that talent gap is.
Our guy AB is doing well over there with Arkansas, so shout out Anthony Black.
No question. Yeah, no question. Let's talk about the seniors for a second. Listen to this list. Okay, so I went through and I started a list like the very best player on every team that's still playing. Okay, Keontae Johnson, which by the way, I think amazing to see him playing the way that he's been playing.
Amari Bailey too. He's really turned it on for UCLA.
One of the few guys. Yeah, one of the few guys. Short list. But Michigan State, right? Tyson Walker. I mean, I could go down the whole list. I don't need to do this. But almost every team that's still playing is led by a senior. When was the last time we've seen March Madness be led by seniors? Probably before True TV existed.
Calipari got to Kentucky when they started incorporating the one and done stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a long time. It's been such a long time.
Probably a decade, if we're being like honest. Like, it's probably been a decade since we've seen every available team have a senior or two leading the charge.
Is this a bracket that you feel like you have to have seniors in order to win it? It feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, I want guys who have been through the battles, who have taken their lumps, who have taken their losses, who are hungry to get back there. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a handful. I think you mentioned one, Amari Bailey. Again, thinking about the NBA teams and young guys. I really, really like Colby Jones from Xavier. I think he's done such a great job of improving his NBA stock. Not that I really need improvement, but like more in the conversation of being a next level guy. I think Jordan Hawkins from Connecticut also falls in that category. I'm totally drawing a blank. The big fella from Connecticut. He's a junior.
Yamasanogo.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I was totally drawing a blank. I was thinking Oscar Sheway the whole time. Sanogo's amazing. That dude's a freaking monster. But not a lot of guys, I think, really like, we always see like this March Madness surge for guys in the draft. I don't know if we're going to see a ton of that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Now that you bring that up, I'm like, yeah, there's nobody that I'm like, that guy's that like, who was it that year for Villanova, Dante DiVincenzo, where he just had that great tournament and his stock rose, stuff like that. He's not been that guy.
Not been that guy this year. It just hasn't been. That's just kind of where we're at. Anyways, it's a senior-laden tournament, and that's kind of where we're at. And again, I think that kind of goes where we are. Okay, let's kind of move ahead now to the Sweet 16. We've got a really good slate. Okay, we've got 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. Of these 8 games on the slate, Josh Tech, give me your 3 must-see games in the Sweet 16. I've wrote down 3. You wrote down 3. We haven't talked about it. I want to see let's start from the bottom. Okay, let's start from the bottom. Okay, I don't know if you have to rank them.
The least good one, I guess.
Yeah,
yeah.
Number 3, number 2, then number 1. Who do you have as your number 3 game?
Oh God, all these games are so good that I don't know which one to put at the bottom. But I'll go with this. I'll go with Friday at 9:45, Xavier versus Texas.
It's a very, very good one. I contemplated that one getting in my top 3. I think it was probably 3B for me. Yeah, I think that one's really good. Xavier, though, like, we saw them just barely, by the grace of the basketball gods in Cincinnati, beat Kennesaw State. We didn't talk about Kennesaw State, by the way. Shout out to those guys. That was awesome. Right. An unbelievable game.
Can I bring up something funny that happened during that? During their game, during the halftime, Amir Abdur-Rahim, he brought up toughness runs through I-75, and being a guy who grew up in Louisville, which is close to Cincinnati, I was like, well, 75 also runs through Cincinnati. So I just thought that was a really funny connection. I knew what he was saying, but I was like, I'm sure inadvertently, it's just a funny connection that the same highway ran through the same city and it's all that kind of deal.
Fair. Totally fair. I did see that. When you said that, I was like, oh, you're true. But I don't know about this Xavier team. I mean, I worry about their depth. I think there's some real depth concerns there.
That's the issue for me.
Yeah. They're just not there. Couldn't finish. I mean, they had a huge block down the stretch to get that win, but I don't know. There's something about that Xavier team that held me off. Okay, what about my number 3 game, forgive me, was Houston versus Miami, was my number 3 game. Did that make your top 3?
That was probably my 3B.
Yeah.
I just feel so strongly about Houston that I was just kind of like, all right, like, I think this would be a great game, but I just feel so strongly about Houston right now after seeing what they've done so far. I'm just like, I just have a hard time seeing anyone beat them,
Okay, well, let me pivot off of that. The more I watch Houston, also 2 really tough games. They're kind of beat up, but they're resilient. We know they're going to go out there and compete. They've got tons of seniors. But Miami is just as old. Miami's got a bunch of guys that go out there and compete. I'm with you on Wong. Wong was so good in that second round game that there was some star power there that you're like, hard to ignore that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Miami, if they beat Houston, I wouldn't be shocked to see Miami get to the Final Four, honestly. Wouldn't be shocked.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. This is almost like the final boss en route to their Final Four.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, what's your number 2 must-see game here in the Sweet 16?
I am having such a hard time deciding between these 2 games. This is ridiculous. I'm just gonna go with the one that starts first. I don't. These are 1A and 1B.
Okay.
And the one that starts first is Arkansas versus UConn.
Why is it in your top three?
I think both of these teams are national championship contenders. I didn't think Arkansas could get there, but just Musselman, if you want to talk about clutch players, Musselman's a clutch coach. This guy always, he has that kind of January swoon, but in March, his teams are always playing their best. I think, this is probably his third, second weekend in a row at Arkansas. He made it to the Elite Eight last year. I think he has the talent to get to the Final Four. They have this tough UConn, team in front of them, but I think the winner of this is probably going to be my favorite to go to the Final Four out of this side of the bracket.
Were you buying or selling his take his shirt off celebration?
What do you mean? Do you think like is like real, or do you want me to do, or do you think I should he should stop doing it?
I'm all for coaches not taking their shirts off and jumping on it. I mean, listen, it was a first weekend win, and he said it was their biggest win in their program since he's been there over Kansas, who didn't have Bill Self. I don't know. I get it.
I guess my only complaint with it is that he always does it, so it's like it feels like it's almost a shtick at this point. Like come up with a more natural celebration. Like, all right, shirt off, dude. You're that's what you're becoming, shirt off, dude.
Shirt off, dude. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm curious to hear who your 1A is. And actually, I may yield to you to reveal that, to see where you're at, because I have a feeling it's probably on my list too.
My 1A?
Yeah.
UCLA and Gonzaga.
Yeah. That's my number one.
That's the best, dude. That game they had in the Final Four the other year, I remember watching that from the Hoover Center in the office at Bama Jam. We didn't leave. We were just sitting there like, okay, we got to see what happens in this game. And I couldn't go to sleep after that game because it was so good. So now that just lingering in my mind, and I don't know why this is. I just love West Coast basketball, and both of these teams are two teams that I really just enjoy watching all season long.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's my number one game by far. I don't know, it's because I live out here on the West Coast. I'm with you. I love this game. I think it's two of the best coaches still in the tournament. It's blue blood versus blue blood. I'm with you, actually.
This game has the most college basketball star power. They might not be NBA picks or NBA guys or this, that, or the other, but Drew Timme and Jaime Jaquez are those are two of college basketball's very best players who have been playing this game for a long time, going at it. And I think that's going to be just for college basketball fans, it's as good as it gets.
Yeah, Tiger Campbell, by the way, a senior. I was thinking about him. Like Tiger Campbell, for me, I really like him as a player. I remember him. He played at Swanee a long time ago. We played with Marvin Bagley actually on a travel team. That's how long ago it was. The fact he's still playing college ball kind of blows my mind. But I do wonder, where does he stack up in UCLA point guard history for UCLA fans? Because he's been he started every single game since he's been there, which is really, really hard to do. So it's actually pretty understated career out of Tiger Campbell.
This has been one of the best stretches of UCLA basketball since.
So very good. Unbelievable. Yeah. Jaime Jaquez, though, too. That guy, what a legend.
That's my guy. I love that guy. He is maybe king clutch in this tournament. So
if they win, you have to grow out a Jaime Jaquez stash and a little soul patch.
I'll try. I can't really grow facial hair that well, but I'll try. Certainly. Okay. Yeah.
Fair
I don't care about best in the South. Maybe it'll grow in.
I've got Kansas State and Michigan State as my number 2 game, just because I think there's some real excitement. Those are two, and I think maybe I'm a little biased. Those are two coaches that I would love my son to go play for, is Jerome Tang and Tom Izzo. I've said it from day one. Tom Izzo would be a guy that my son would play for. Tom Izzo coaching in the tournament never gets old. I do wonder, how much longer do we have of that? Yeah. And I do think Jerome Tang's an absolute rising superstar. And that dude just seems like they have so much fun on their team. Keontae Johnson, Marquise. Yeah, sorry, again, old guy brain. So much fun to watch. And then Michigan State, man, there's such a Michigan State team that will grind you out. I have a lot of interest in that game to watch that one as well.
Me too. I feel really good for Joey Hauser because since he's gotten to Michigan State, he's kind of struggled a little bit in the last 2-3 years since he's been there, and he's really turned it on this season. I just kind of I always was waiting for it. I was always like, this is the year. This is the Joey Hauser year, and it just didn't come. And now it's coming. I'm like, all right, cool, man. I'm happy you're doing well now.
I love it. Okay, let's play a little game. Okay, we got the Sweet 16 on the table, right? We've got some really good matchups, and I've always believed this is that ultimately it comes down to which you got dudes. You got dudes on your team. Give me the 3 guys, maybe more if you have them, that are the most clutch, that you trust the most down the stretch, that are still playing in the tournament.
Okay. Jaime Jaquez, like I said, I truly believe that he has to be on that list. Drew Timme, he also has to be on that list. The way he did the other night was fantastic, and he's just been great. And after that one, oh, it's tough. After that, I'm gonna go with Isaiah Wong because when he started playing well, like when he started to become the superstar that he is now, it correlates with Miami's success. They made the Elite Eight last year. They're back here this year, and I think the rise of Isaiah Wong has been the catalyst for that.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. Really hard to argue with that list. Drew Timme's on my list, number 1. Again, I really do think I'm leaning more and more to that Kansas State team because I think they've got multiple guys that can be clutch. Yeah. Texas is interesting too because they've got a lot of older guys. A lot of these teams have older guys that have kind of been there.
Well, I think with Texas, for me, it's like it feels like a different guy does it every game. So there's not like a guy for Texas. I feel like so many different steps up each game. So I feel like it's just their collection of talent that is driving the ship for them, as opposed to one particular guy.
Yeah, I'm mad at that. Couple other things as we're kind of going through. I really can't stand all the replays. I really can't stand them. I feel like every single game under a minute had so many replays down the stretch. Yeah. It was really hard to watch. I will never be a fan of officials. Sorry. But man, it just gets overthought way too much. Jim Nance is on his way out. So I love what Ian Eagle's been doing. Unbelievable on the calls. And Kevin Harlan needs to be on everything. I just saw right before we started recording, I think it was on Barstools. They had like a camera on Kevin Harlan and Dan Bonner and Stan Van Gundy when Furman beat Virginia. If you haven't seen that, go to Twitter and just search for Kevin Harlan video. Unbelievable. The guy, I want him to call every game. I'd love those guys in the tournament. But Gus Johnson needs to be in this tournament, by the way.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best of all time. So.
Okay, let's repick the Final Four, Josh. Okay, we've got basically the bracket kind of reset. Has anything? Well, let me ask one more question before we get into that. Can Princeton do it?
I don't see why not. Okay, they can. At this point, you can. You beat Arizona, you beat Missouri by 1,000,000. So yeah, I can't say that you can. But they're also going against Creighton, who is a team that I've just been so enamored with. This
young team, though. Of all the teams that are still playing, one of the youngest teams still in the bracket.
Yeah, no doubt. That's actually a pretty interesting thing that I didn't even consider. But yeah, I just think this Creighton team is so good. But yeah, Princeton can do it. I'm going to pick Creighton, but Princeton can do it.
Okay, that's interesting. I do think the big guy for Creighton, whose name I'm totally
Ryan Kalkbrenner.
There we go. I think
he's been Mr. Clutch too. He had like 34 points against NC State. He made DJ Burns look foolish. So
he's unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. Okay, let's talk about your Final Four. Let's talk about who you got. I've got mine. Okay. Here, I'll make it easy for you.
Okay.
I got Alabama.
I do too. Hey, I do too. I've got Alabama there.
I mean, I think everybody's pretty still safe with Alabama. Yep. Javon Quinterly and Brandon Miller is kind of like lull. Javon Quinterly in the second round was outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. They're another team that's got just different dudes who can step up and do it all the time. So.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it moving.
All right, Alabama. Texas. I got Texas. I like the way they're playing right now. I think Rodney Terry has just been on a tear. I put him as one of the, coach of the year candidates way back in January. So I feel pretty good about that now. I think they're really rallying around him.
Yeah, we did a pod about that job. And I think we got so caught up in the idea of maybe John Calipari there that we didn't give enough credit to Rodney Terry and being a real.
At that point in time, it was still so new for him. He hadn't really had enough time to really prove it.
True.
Now that he's kind of had more time, it's like, all right, you should go ahead and just give him the job. I think you go ahead and give him the job.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think I'm not looking at the brackets. I'm pretty sure that are they in the same bracket space as UCLA?
No. They are in the I don't have the bracket pulled up either, but the UCLA one is UCLA, Gonzaga, Arkansas, UConn.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's just finish out where you got.
Okay, I got so Alabama, Texas, Michigan State. I'm just gonna ride the Tom Izzo train. I mean, there's no reason for me to pick against him right now. There's not really like a crazy, scary contender in that side of the bracket. So I think Michigan State can do it. I'm just gonna ride with them. Izzo's gonna potentially go out on top. We'll see. And then the winner of Arkansas and UConn. I haven't determined who I think is going to win that game yet. But I think the winner of that game goes to the Final Four.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same way with this Miami-Houston game. I think the winner of that game goes to the Final Four. I really like Kansas State a lot. I think they're playing so well. I think they're having fun. I think they're tough. I really like what Jerome Tang is doing. Again, I mentioned Alabama and then UCLA. I got UCLA pulling it off down the home stretch. Yeah, I think really like maybe I've seen Gonzaga just struggle so many times at this stage of the bracket, like getting in the Sweet 16 8 times in a row, phenomenal. But really, like, man, when that time to dance, the final dance, they just seem to really struggle the most. But I think that game's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think UCLA Gonzaga game could be as fun as any Final Four game that we get this year.
Yeah. Absolutely, and also I usually just pick Gonzaga by default because I want to see them win one. I think that'd be cool. Like I know a lot of people are out there. A lot of people really relish in Gonzaga failing because they run up these gaudy records, and then they're like, see, I told you they couldn't win, but it's like, why are you rooting against Gonzaga? Like that'd be great if they won. That'd be super fun.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of odd. Does your pick change at all on who wins the whole thing? Mine did because I had Arizona winning the whole thing. In our HoopSeen pool, run your pool, shout out run your pool. In that thing we did, I had Texas winning it all. So did you really? Wow.
Yeah. I don't really ever go with overthinking. I just kind of when I see a matchup, I'm like, well, I think that team's probably just gonna win. So I just kind of go with my gut. In Texas, my gut took me to Texas.
I'm gonna keep it in the Pac-12 and go to UCLA. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that pick had they not been so injured. Like if they were going in fully healthy, I think I would go with UCLA probably going to win it all.
It'd be interesting to see what happens, man. Well, this was fun. Tons of fun. This is a really old tournament. This is to me, I think experience plays out. We didn't even talk about Florida Atlantic, by the way. I think Florida Atlantic also has a real shot of making some real magic. By the way, we talked about being such a senior group, and they have a lot of guys that played together for a long time. But John L. Davis was amazing down the stretch.
Oh, yeah. Talk about Mr. Club. Yeah.
Like, he's a guy that really did, I think, win the first weekend and played himself into a position where people are like, oh, who's that guy? And if Dusty May, levels up and maybe gets Notre Dame, interesting to see where John L. Davis, an Indiana native, does he go with Dusty May to South Bend? So a lot of things to kind of keep our eyes on. As we wrap things up here, Ed Cooley to Georgetown, Mike Bray to South Florida. A lot of interesting, juicy stuff.
That's happening. to St. John's.
Oh, how could I forget? So, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a different pod. But nevertheless, it's been a lot of good stuff. Listen, if you've watched this far, thanks for being related to us, because I have a feeling only people that are watching this far are people that are related to us. So, hi, Mom. If not, make sure you subscribe down below on HoopSeen TV right here on YouTube. If you're watching this on Twitter, like it or retweet it or do anything that you can to help spread the word. We got a lot of podcasts that we keep rolling out there. So, Josh, I'm out of voice, man. I've been talking nonstop all day today. I got nothing left, man. Nothing left.
Really quick, while you've got nothing left, sign up for the HoopSeen tip-off, and we can watch these games together this weekend on my phone.
I like it. Well, really, to that end, go to hoopseen.com/events. April's going to be bumping. April's going to be a ton of fun, man. We got a lot of good stuff. So if you're a program director, go there. Find a good jam session to come hang out with us. Live period stuff, Atlanta, Louisville. Heck, even sign up even down the road for Bob Gibbons. But nevertheless, that's Josh Tech. I'm Justin Young. We appreciate you guys watching. Good luck in the second round. Enjoy taking Thursday night off. Watch all these games. It's good stuff. We'll see you next time.